Awesome. So we're admitting people now, and I'm going to wait until my husband Tim tells me that each time I start too fast, because it takes a minute or so for Zoom to let everybody in. So he always misses the first part of this. So I'm going to wait a few seconds and then start. But welcome everybody. We're so glad you can join us today. We're having a lot of fun with these Zoom travel talks, and I hope you are too. I think a lot of people who've joined us for the past few talks are coming back tonight. Well, tonight on the East Coast, afternoon on the West Coast. So today we're talking about, I'm just going to go ahead and start. Today, oh no, maybe I shouldn't start because it's not even 6 o'clock yet. I'm wondering how many people here on the screen right now have last minute plans themselves. I know Billy and Brooke do. Who else? Is anybody going anywhere over the next week or month? Or Meg, where are you going?
I just booked Cozumel for next week because I need to see the fish.
Is that part of therapy, is seeing the fish?
I need to go diving and visit the fish, and Cozumel seemed like a good spot. Nonstop air out of Denver, get through the protocol. But yes, I just booked it for next week. But I've been booking a lot of last minute. I mean, I do think that's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of advantages to it right now. I think that's why we're getting so much, there's so many requests and questions about that for that reason. Who else has some travel plans to share?
Brooke?
Well, I just booked tickets to go to Botswana and Zimbabwe in July, which, still that's pretty last minute for an African safari. So I'm super excited about that.
Billy?
I'm in the process of planning a trip to Croatia and Greece. Yay! Sometime in the next couple of weeks. Details TBD. But yeah, I'm really excited to go back to both those places. They're open and warm and beautiful. So it should be fun.
I was supposed to go on a Windstar cruise, the Star in the Caribbean out of St. Martin. Did you guys know that the Star Breeze is having its inaugural fabulous itinerary out of St. Martin? I can't go because I need to do college visits with my younger son. But we'll go. But we're going to go on the Windstar ship as soon as those college visits are over. So, okay. So anyway, it's 2 minutes past 6 now, and so let's get started. For real. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're talking about amazing last minute trips. There are a lot of advantages to last minute travel, especially in the time of COVID. And I think a lot of travelers are kind of starting to realize this, which is why we're getting so many questions about it. Some of those advantages, for instance, are, people, for just in terms of health, the vaccine is fresh and potent in people's bodies. And we know that it protects you against all known variants, including the one in South Africa, including so people feel like they have this confidence, right? Health-wise. If it's last minute, the airline flight schedules are much less likely to change. The COVID safety protocols and entry requirements are less likely to change. If you're worried about putting down money for a trip far in the future, you don't need to worry about doing that if it's next week. So I think there are a lot of reasons why people are saying, yes, I want to go now. Aside from the fact that people are very anxious to get back out there and experience someplace other than their own four walls. But there are also drawbacks of last minute travel. And that's what we've been, the questions that you all in the audience pre-submitted to us, it was very clear that there are a lot of questions and concerns about the potential hassles and logistical challenges, the testing. And by the way, I think a lot of you may be operating on certain sort of outdated assumptions. Like, for instance, it's very easy to get last minute tests nowadays. I do it all the time because I've had to travel a lot. And every time I come back home, I'm vaccinated now, but still, for certain reasons, I may need to get tested. I just use Vault Health. Like, it's so easy. They mail you by UPS, they send you the kit, you spit into it, you send it back, and it's just like, I'm so used to it by now. So it's actually very easy. And then a lot of you, I think, are worried about the testing to come back into the United States. But but that's one reason why we have all of these travel specialists from the WOW list here with us today, because they actually make that so easy. They know exactly, because they know the lay of the land at these destinations, they know how to get the tests that you need very, very easily and quickly. So another concern that I think really came through in your pre-submitted questions when it comes to worries about last minute travel are the CDC travel health notices, and how, a number of countries are at level 4, which is the riskiest level. And, I just want to point out one thing, which is that the way the CDC determines the levels, their criteria are really based on coronavirus. They have certain criteria, and actually maybe Billy can even share in the chat a link to what their criteria are. But the point is, it applies to the entire country, right? And as we all know, the places where a traveler is going to go in a country, they're going to a certain place that might be it might be an area that has a very different profile than other parts of that country. But, Brooke, do you have anything? I would love to hear your, thoughts about the CDC travel health notices or the State Department advisories, if you have any advice for our viewers today.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think the CDC, if you look at all of their travel health notices, a lot of them are dated early April. I think mid-April is the latest I've seen on any of those. And so that's in the world we live in now. That's a long time ago, right? And I think that they are probably rightfully focused on other things right now. The looser guidelines that we were all, including the people in the White House, were all kind of surprised to hear about with masking. I think what the CDC is trying to do right now is induce hesitant Americans to get vaccinated, and international travel really is not on their radar. And, frankly, they're a underfunded organization, and they probably don't have the wherewithal to focus on all these things at the same time. So my guess is that those advisories will change in the future, but it's just not a top priority at this moment.
And so, another thing, I think a lot of people are worried about the State Department advisories, which, for many, for many, many years now, for the 30 years that I've been traveling and been a travel journalist and writing about State Department advisories, and I've always sort of taken them with a grain of salt, based on experts including Madeleine Albright, experts I've interviewed over the years. But, a few weeks ago, they adopted the CDC criteria. And so, that's another reason why they're not, the CDC rates Israel as much, much safer right now. That's at level 2, as opposed to all these other, countries that are at level, like 80% of the world at level 4. I wouldn't say that Israel is necessarily the safest place to travel to right now. So it's not always, yes, look at the State Department advisories, but take other factors into consideration as well. Billy, do you sort of have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So we all know there are mixed messages, right? From between the U.S. government and international governments, and also just within the U.S. government agencies, they don't have aligned messaging. So that's exactly why we're holding these Q&As. Like, we're trying to put informed people in front of all of you who can answer your questions and concerns from the perspective of a traveler, just something we're not seeing a lot of reporting on. So please keep the questions coming and watch the recordings of our previous talks and read the reviews from travelers who've been out there now, because they'll report back on what's actually happening and how they navigated those logistics and how it compared to what they might be reading in the news. And then we'll all try and parse through this information that's relevant to us and make the best decisions we can make for ourselves. And in fact, as Wendy said, I'm personally going to travel to Croatia and Greece in a few weeks. And even though I think they're level 4.
They're level 4.
Yeah, I feel comfortable going. And a big part of that reason, A, I'm vaccinated, but B, it's because I've been to both places before. So there's a level of comfort. Like, I know what it's like on the ground. I already have a sense of how to navigate things, what it looks like, the kind of situations I'm going to be in. And I think when you remove that unknown, it makes me feel more confident that I can practice the same kind of social distancing and safety protocols there that I do at home very easily. And also it'll give me the opportunity to see those places again, but also get off the beaten path a little bit more and see different things as well.
Thanks, Billy. Yeah, I think, this is actually, I think, a wonderful time for people who want to go back to a country they loved the first time. If that country is open, now's a good time to go. But if you have a level of comfort and knowledge that, like, oh yeah, I know how to exist in a COVID safe way in that place because I was there before and I totally can see how I would do that. Now's a great time to take advantage of that. I mean, like, and in fact, every all the WOW List travel specialists who are with us today, who you see on the screen, and who represent those are all countries I have been to before, and that I know you can have they have an outdoor environment where you can have a very COVID safe experience. I mean, as just one example, Morocco. A lot of people nobody might be thinking about Morocco, but having been there so many times, I know exactly how, you eat your meals outdoors. You stay in little riads where you have an external entrance and the windows open and you have a lot of privacy. You go hiking in the Atlas Mountains. It's kind of like an outdoor museum. You go strolling through the Medina. A lot of your day is spent you go into the Sahara Desert. It's like a place where you're outdoors a lot. Similar with Croatia, having been there, it's like an outdoor museum. You stroll the walls of the medieval city of Dubrovnik. You go out in a boat, you dine al fresco on the waterfront. Greece, you go to islands and beaches and coastline, and these are places where I think you can have have minimal risk right now, but a maximized experience. And I know that our travelers feel the same way because of the trip reviews we've been receiving from travelers going to these places. So let's get started and talk about some of these destinations that I think are a good option for given the concerns that you guys voiced in the questions you asked us. So let's start with Meg. First of all, for people, a lot of you might want to be staying in the United States, or you might feel like, no, I can go to the Caribbean. Meg, you know both really well. Why don't you tell us, give us some suggestions of what you've been arranging last minute trips. Tell us about some of them that people have really enjoyed.
I have done a lot of last minute trips. I love last minute trips. First, you have to focus in on the air because the air is crucial. The air is critical. People are either comfortable with a connection or they're not. I am much more comfortable with a nonstop flight because the air schedules seem to change all the time. As far as the US, think about ski resorts. Ski resorts in the summer right now are an excellent value. There's some incredible accommodations, 5-star dining. The value is there. It's perfect for a multi-generational or just a couple. The Ritz-Carlton Bachelor Gulch is right down the street for me. I've just put some people there last minute. They've got 2 dogs. You can take the dogs hiking I've got a tennis pro. You can take a lesson with a tennis pro. You want to work out with Michaela Schifrin, the US Olympian. She lives in my neighborhood. We can get you a workout session with her. But what is really important is that you've got so much outdoor fresh air, ability to social distance. I just booked June 11th, 3 nights, New York. Third night free, every third night free. So if you stay 6 nights, you only pay for 4. At the Pierre. Oh my God, at the Pierre. And you could do that also at the Fairmont. There's just so many hotels that you could, the third night free if you're comfortable going to New York. It just depends on your specific comfort level. Okay, now we've got a lot of people right here that are far, far, far away. I also deal with the Caribbean. I just put people at Almenara, which is in the Dominican Republic. Who knew that we would have nonstop flights out of JFK to POP? POP is where you fly into to get to Almenara. They have got the most incredible package. This is an Oman property. They've got breakfast, lunch, dinner. It is an incredible value. These people want to kite surf, and it's one of the top kiteboarding, kite surfing places in the world, not the United States, in the world. So the airlines are changing their routes to compensate for COVID, and there are new routes popping up. And if you work with a professional, or you can figure out how to make it work seamlessly. The DR, the Dominican Republic, doesn't have any in-country testing. You do need a test to get out, but that's, as Wendy said, it's not hard to navigate whatsoever.
Well, could they do it at your hotel? I feel like a lot of places in the Caribbean, the hotels are just doing the testing for you, right?
They are. Some charge a minimal fee, some charge a higher fee because you can go down the street and do it for free. It depends on where you're going. But yes, not only that, the Riviera Maya. I have clients going to a property in the Riviera Maya.
That's in Mexico.
In Mexico, Caribbean side of Mexico. And he emailed me this morning, and he was a little bit concerned. He goes, well, what about the return testing? They've both been vaccinated. It's a mother-daughter. They're going for 14 nights. And I said, well, we've got options. We've got insurance options that will fly you privately home if need be, $675 per person, not inexpensive. Or a lot of the resorts are offering, if you test positive for whatever reason, 14 nights, all inclusive, no charge. So, it's a worst case scenario, you get stuck for 14 nights and you don't have to pay for a meal, a drink, your hotel.
Meg, what would you, when it comes to the Caribbean, like if there were a couple of Caribbean islands that you think are like, that's where you would go right now, which are they and why?
Turks and Caicos, St. Lucia, Dominican Republic, Anguilla. They are all doing an exceptional job with COVID. They're relatively easy to get into. And when I say relatively easy, there is paperwork that needs to be done, but I hold hands. It's not difficult. It sounds cumbersome. They require an insurance policy, which, depending on how you book, that's a very easy thing to secure, and it comes with CFAR, cancel for any reason. So it's a double whammy, meaning that it's excellent to have, and it covers that one aspect. Turks has been very easy, especially from the East Coast with the nonstop flights. Same with Anguilla's got the bubble, quote, quote, bubble, where you have to stay at specific resorts, but then you can go to specific restaurants if they're in the bubble. Mm-hmm. So you feel like you can get out and enjoy the island, and not just be stuck in your hotel. They're certified, they're clean, whatever. But they're included. So, not cost-wise, but easy to do, easy to navigate.
Okay, Meg, thank you so much for painting that picture for us. We appreciate it. Moving along to Ashton Palmer, I would love to ask you about Alaska and also small ships, because you're a specialist in small expedition ships. And those are they operate very, very differently than the big cruise lines. It's a whole different planet. And they've just added, I think, a lot of small ship cruises in Alaska and Iceland also this summer, haven't they?
Yeah, so Iceland has been open for a while. Thank you, Wendy, and nice to see everyone and get to see your listeners today. Alaska is an interesting destination this year because it is the first year for many that the large traditional cruise ships will not be there. And that's because Canada has closed their waters to ships passing through Canadian waters to get to Alaska. And most of those large cruise ships either originated in Vancouver, British Columbia, or in Seattle, Washington. So the small expedition ships, these are ships that carry 200 passengers or less, many of them are 100 passengers or less, do have the permits and the ability to operate in Alaska's Inside Passage in the southeast of Alaska. And it's a spectacular area filled with wildlife and wilderness. These ships are taking every precaution and protocol that they can to create safe environments. They are vaccinating all of their crew and staff. They're also requiring that passengers are vaccinated as well. So where in the world can you go where you know that everyone has been vaccinated? You can't go to a hotel. You can't, you don't know, certainly airports and different things. But I think that they're doing a very good job of getting people to these wilderness areas in a way that can be, as safe as they can make it. Of course, it is a personal decision, but I think it's a great time to visit Alaska this summer, and there's some good opportunities to get into wilderness. Iceland as well. Iceland has been open to travelers for a while. It's a fairly outdoorsy experience destination, although limited roads and limited access to get around the island. So cruising around Iceland, a number of the small expedition ships have itineraries that take you off the beaten path and get you hiking and kayaking and into zodiacs, looking for marine and bird life and the spectacular scenery. And again, doing it with a fully vaccinated complement of crew and staff and passengers. Honestly, I think it's a great opportunity to get to these wild and wonderful places.
And if you want an experience on land in Iceland, I think Billy, Iceland's one of the countries where there's no pre-trip testing required. As long as you're vaccinated, you can get into Iceland.
That is correct. Yes, they were one of the first countries to open. They've accelerated infrastructure of tourism over the last several years, and it's a spectacular country to visit. So yes, you can certainly visit by land. There's self-drive options if you're more comfortable doing something independently. You can set up private travel arrangements where you stay in hotels and have transfers and just for you and your partner or group that you're with. And there are some small group tours as well.
Right. Thank you, Ashton. Iceland is phenomenal. I mean, it's one of it's got this unique geological, like otherworldly landscape. I've never found it anywhere else in the world. And it's all about being outdoors. It's like just all about space, right? So it's like perfect for a pandemic. Thank you, Ashton. So moving right along to Patricia Johnson, who's a WOW list specialist for Belize. And I've actually been to Belize 3 times. It is a place where you spend a lot of your day underwater because it's got an incredible barrier reef. And it's another place that's very, very outdoorsy. But Patricia, tell us, but what's most interesting to me about Belize right now actually is that it has a CDC safety level of 2, which is like a very high for the, it's of all the places in the world right now, it's deemed relatively very safe.
It is. The COVID numbers here are low, and it's been managed really well by the Ministry of Health. Plus, it's really fairly easy to stay socially distant here because we don't really have a big city. Belize City is our largest city, and compared to other places, it's relatively small.
So can you tell us sort of what from the time you land in the airport at Belize, what would be a way of how could, like, tell us about like what a typical trip might be and how you manage to do it in a physically distanced and very outdoorsy way. Like, for instance, how is it, you know, do you get into from when you land in the airport in Belize City, like, do you get on a small plane? Do you get on a boat? What do you do? And where do you go?
So there are a few last minute trips that I've been planning, and they can go a few different ways. One of the more popular ones recently is the all-inclusive sailing, which is super easy, and it's one of the safest ways to travel in Belize right now, because since the airport opened in October, Belize Sailing Vacations has been making sure that all of the crew are tested before each charter. So on your charter with you, you'll have your captain and you have your first mate, who is also your chef. So you're in close proximity with these people, but they are tested before each charter, and they do follow all of the protocols that are set out by the Ministry of Health here. Getting to the marina is only about 10 minutes. So when you land at the airport, we will have our driver pick you up and take you over to the marina, and then you jump on board your yacht, which will take you around to some of the most beautiful islands on the coast of Belize that not everybody has access to, because like you have to be on a boat to get there. Let's say you're staying on one of the more popular islands on Virgin Key, you probably wouldn't get to see some of the islands like Gulch, where you don't have access to unless you're on a private charter.
Right. Well, Patricia, it's a little hard to hear you. I don't know. That's not a great connection, but I have to say, for people who, like, I think a lot of people don't realize that you can have a Caribbean yacht charter in Belize, and it's much more affordable, and it's safe because you know, like, the crew has been tested. I mean, you're out at sea, for goodness sake, you know, it's like stopping at uninhabited islands. So anyway, thank you, Patricia, so much. Another place now that Ali Almario is our specialist in the Galapagos Islands and Ecuador, as well as other parts of South America. But what fascinates me about the Galapagos, I mean, the Galapagos has been opened for many months now. And of course, it's a place where it's easy to be, you know, basically safe in the pandemic. Ali, why don't you tell us a little bit about it and what a Galapagos, because we've gotten amazing reviews from travelers who have come back from the Galapagos.
I think for one, it's a built-in safe place. You've got an archipelago that only has 30,000 people, and within 2 weeks or so, they're expecting 100% of all the people who live there and all the travel professionals who work with the cruise industry and the hotels should all be vaccinated. So that's number one. Secondly, to come to Ecuador, you can come into Ecuador with just COVID vaccination, no issues. But if you're going to the Galapagos, you must be tested within 4 days. They've done such a great job of making it easy for everyone coming in and out of Ecuador to be tested. They have labs now that are in the airports. Some of them are open 24 hours. So you can get rapid results in Quito, for example, within 15 minutes to an hour. In the Galapagos itself, by law, you can't get off any of the ships unless they're in groups of 16 or smaller. And because right now the level of tourism is back to where it was maybe 20 years ago. There are so few people comparatively that are traveling there. You know, your group sizes are 6, 8, 10 people. So people feel like they're having the islands to themselves. And what that's allowed the islands to do is rebound. They've never really needed to rebound. They're so protected anyway. But for example, the national park has said the Galapagos penguins and the albatrosses, waved albatrosses, have made a great comeback and are flourishing. So that's really great news. For people who are nervous about traveling on a small ship, everyone who comes on board is pretty much tested to be negative. You have to wear a mask around the ship itself, but in your cabins, you don't have to wear it. On the islands, They are saying that you can or should wear masks, but I think it's become discretionary. If you're on an island and very few people are around, I have heard that some people are not enforcing the mask rule because there's really nobody around. If you do come across other people, which is very rare, yeah, you might mask up. The other thing that people are doing are switching over to pretty much all online forms. So things that you used to print out and show, you now do all online. Buffets are on board the ships. They're pretty much all sort of done away with. And some snorkeling gear, you might have to bring your own, but that's just a safety precaution. Some ships are including it. The other thing right now is if you're going the last minute, they are literally throwing out some great benefits, some great perks, free airfare, free night hotels, extra nights while you're on board. So if you're flexible, and the key, you have to be flexible because things can't always go wrong. But if you can come to the Galapagos, be flexible, just commune with the wildlife. That's the best thing you can do.
Well, it sounds like they've really, I think because they've been open to travelers for so many months now, they've really gotten it down. Like they've figured out, they've gone through I feel like those destinations that have been, those countries and regions that have been open for a while, if a place has been open for many months, they've learned how to welcome travelers, how to keep people safe. They've kind of honed the protocols. Would you say that's the case with the Galapagos?
Absolutely. I think they've been open for months, but they haven't had a huge amount of travelers come through. So that's number one. I just got the latest report. In the Galapagos right now, there are only 15 cases of COVID in the entire archipelago. So the risk of coming to the Galapagos is very, very low in getting it.
That's a great example of the CDC, how people can sort of misinterpret the CDC travel health notices, because Ecuador, the Galapagos Islands belong to Ecuador. Ecuador is safety level 4, which is the not good. And yet in the Galapagos, that's just a part of the country. In the Galapagos, there's barely any COVID. That's a very good example of how you have to think about where in the country you'd be traveling to and how much of it is the experience that travelers have versus the experience that the residents have,
Had months to prepare and months to think about how to make an already efficient and well-run tourism professional protocols and all that. They've had months to put it into place, and it's run like clockwork. There have been no issues. So anyone looking to come and do a last-minute trip, we guarantee you that there'll be some great benefits and deals out there. So I think that's an easy way. It's only 4 hours from Miami, so very quick to get to Ecuador within 1 day. So there's lots of reasons for people to consider traveling to Ecuador and the Galapagos for quick, easy in and out.
Great, Ali, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking such great care of our readers who have been traveling to Galapagos.
Thank you.
And now I want to move along to Europe and go to Croatia. Gwen Kozlowski. Hi, Gwen.
Hi.
Hi. So, of course, Billy is headed to Croatia, and I would be going there if I didn't have college visits to do, because to me, I mean, I've been to Croatia several times, and it really is like an outdoor museum. You can see everything you want to see, kind of staying outdoors. But tell us, like, what do you think makes Croatia, there's a special moment for Croatia, and also makes it a good last minute option?
Sure. What you said is exactly right. Croatia is designed for socially distant outdoor touring. And the best thing about it is that, I mean, I love museums, but there's hardly any. So you're outdoors, you're standing in history, you're not inside in a museum or waiting in line to get in a museum. So it's perfect for travel now. And really what really makes it special this year is the lack of crowds that will be there, because a year and a few months ago, I was on a panel for over tourism in Dubrovnik. And this year is like a huge opportunity to be able to go to a place that is jam-packed with people normally. That won't be this year. And that's for a number of reasons. Number one, a big one is no big cruise ships. And Croatia, all along the sea, is usually inundated with multiple cruise ship stops every single day in these very small medieval cities that are often walled cities. And it's jam-packed from morning till late afternoon with cruise ship travelers, and that simply won't be the case this year. And even though travelers now from Europe can go, there's no big bus tours and group tours, and so it's really just individual tourists from America and from other countries in Europe, and it makes for a much more pleasant experience in being able to really enjoy everything Croatia has.
Is there availability in the hotels, or like a lot of EU travelers who want to go to Croatia? Are they booking the hotels?
Both. The EU tends to travel longer than Americans and stay in one place. So Croatia is kind of almost like a Caribbean destination for EU travelers. So like Brits might go and stay in one spot for 2 weeks and do like an all-inclusive vacation, like somebody from here would to the Caribbean. Most Americans are going to Croatia to sort of move around the country and see different areas and different destinations. And with creative planning, you can work around hotel availability issues you might find.
Okay, great to know. And I think also with Croatia, you don't need pre-trip testing. You can, if you're vaccinated, you can get in.
That's correct. So if you're vaccinated, you can get in with no pre-trip testing. You can also cross the border to Montenegro, because we have a lot of people that continue on to Montenegro, no testing. If you are unvaccinated, or if people are traveling with children that are unvaccinated, it's a 48-hour test that is required to enter. If you're in an area of the country where that's problematic, you can enter with a test older than 48 hours, but you just have to spend the first night in Zagreb so we can have a rapid test done. And then from day 2, you can go on about. There's no other quarantine. It's just the one day to do a rapid test, because we have had families that have not been able to get their children vaccinated, and they're wondering if that means no family vacation, but it's all workable.
Great. Thank you, Gwen. And now moving over to Greece, Mina Agnos, who is our specialist for Greece. And it's, I think, what, like 1:30 in the morning? Is that what time?
It's a little bit late. It's been a long day.
Thank you so much for staying up late to join us and tell us. So the situation with Greece is that it really just opened, a few weeks ago.
Right. So we opened the borders on April 19th with the 5-stage opening process. We really didn't have a lot of travelers traveling during that period because the full opening was May 14th. So as of today, the country is fully, well, as of Friday, the country is fully open. You don't have any quarantine requirements. You don't need to test beforehand if you're vaccinated. So as long as your vaccine is administered 14 days prior to your arrival, there's no testing. And we're really ready. It's feeling like Greek summer.
Awesome. And how do you help people? Let's say people need to get the test to come back to the United States. Is that real? How do you make that easier for people?
It's very easy. We have testing administered either at hotels, or we can deliver people to do testing or take clients to testing sites. There are also testing centers in most of the international airports as well, with a 6-hour turnaround time. So it's not been an issue to get those tests done.
I know we had travelers who were in Greece. You took care of them last fall. That was before anybody was vaccinated, and they felt, like they were like, they didn't have any issues at all. And so it just seems like now that people are vaccinated, it's a great, opportunity.
I think
there aren't the big cruise ships, right?
Right. We're going to be having limited cruise ships this season. Last season we did open last year. We did have travelers not from the US, but from around the world. We didn't have any issues with clients becoming infected or having to quarantine throughout the whole season. And I think, again, Greece is one of the countries that really lends itself to post-COVID travel because everything is outside, especially when you're on the islands. Even hotels, a lot of times, have entrances to your rooms from the outdoors. Many are smaller boutique hotels. We don't have tall buildings taller than the Acropolis. So you're never going to have to spend a long time in lines for elevators or, worry about the masking indoors a lot of times, because most things do happen open air.
Right. And there are, when are you arranging trips for next week, the week after? People want to
Right.
now, I'm gathering.
Yes, as soon as borders opened, we started getting this rush of people saying, I'm ready to go, I'm vaccinated, let's do this now. So we're getting a lot of clients traveling within the next week. We've had a couple who came and say, 2 days later wanting to travel. So, our last minutes used to be a month prior, and now they're kind of within 2 weeks, which, is fine. We are starting to see some issues with availabilities more into June, which we didn't have a week ago, so that's been really interesting. But it's looking really interesting. I think we're going to be seeing a fun season in Greece, and we did see from last year that it felt like travel in Greek summer. It didn't feel like COVID travel, and we expect the same this year.
Interesting. Thank you, Mina. And now I'd love to ask Hisham about Morocco, because today there was a traveler who they weren't sure where to go like next March with a doctor. It's incredible how many doctors we have who have been traveling through this pandemic, actually. And she has 3 young children. And I said, go to Morocco for spring break. Tell us what you're seeing in terms of last minute travel.
So yeah, this answer is really very specifically targeting our crowd today. And the reason I say that is that Morocco is currently open to citizens from a handful of countries, literally, and the United States happens to be one of them. And so not only do you have a window of time where Morocco is bereft of crowds, but really it's bereft of any foreigners whatsoever. And so there's such a unique moment in time. We have had travelers on the ground. We have some on the ground right now, and more coming in the weeks ahead. And there will never be another time for you to have the cities of Fez and Marrakesh with the old Medinas and really have them to yourself. I mean, this is, think Tom Cruise in that movie, I'm forgetting what movie this was, where, they cleared out Times Square and he had Times Square all to himself. Like, that's literally what Morocco feels like right now. And you do have places that are open, right? So it's not like everything is closed and you're just walking around on your own. The Medinas are open, but the truth is there's no one there to experience them. And that's what people who are coming now, and I would say this window of time will extend through to June, but probably not beyond that. We are expecting the country to start opening to a lot more countries by the end of the month of June. But there is this opportunity right now for Americans to come and see Morocco in a way they never will be able to in the future. It's just a moment in time.
And the locals and like the merchants in the souk and in the Medina must be so happy. They must be so welcoming.
Yeah. Moroccans are known for their hospitality, but the smiles are even more, I think, authentic now than they've been in the past, simply because it's nice to see people come back, after so many months of things being shut down. So yes, we're seeing availability of subject matter experts who used to be quite hard to get a hold of. And so we're able to offer much more sort of in-depth acquaintance with Moroccan culture than we were able to in the past, simply because everyone is happy to make time for people who are traveling right now. So I'll give you just one specific example. In Casablanca, while the city is not known for much, it is known for its Art Deco district and the Hassan II Mosque. And these are places that in the past, our clients typically travel with guides. And so, they get an explanation as to the history and the significance. But for clients on the ground right now, we've had one of the leading architects of the Art Deco movement who's retired in Casablanca and doesn't really like to engage that much with foreigners. But now he's taken the time to accompany some of our clients and talk through the history of the city himself, because he's so happy to see people come back to the city. So that's just one example of folks who are going beyond normal expectations to engage with visitors right now and make them feel like the trip was worth coming out to Morocco.
That's so cool. What would you say is the biggest misperception that people have about what a trip to Morocco during COVID is going to be like?
Well, first off, I think this isn't so much COVID related as much as just general misconceptions about Morocco, that it's somehow far away and hard to get to. So there's a nonstop direct flight from JFK. It's 6.5 hours. In fact, most people they expect that it's going to be such a long trip, they'll be able to get a good amount of shut-eye, but then they realize by the time the plane takes off and lands again, like, you're here in a snap. And so that's not COVID related. It's more just correcting the perception that Morocco is somehow very far away and hard to get to. It's not. With regards to COVID, because of the continued continued uncertainty around border closures all over the world, I think that's been one of the key questions we've had to answer is, what kind of guarantees you guys have around the simple fact that I'll be able to leave the country if I come now. And the answer to that question, in case anyone listening now is wondering, is we have a very close relationship with the American embassy here in Morocco. And so in March of 2020, last year, when the borders were shut and we did have people who were here, we were able to get them on expatriation flights within a matter of days back to the US. So yeah, these are some of the questions we're answering right now.
I remember that in fact, some travelers of ours were in Morocco last March and they couldn't get home because the State Department, whatever, there was this whole, like this, there were no flights going back and the State Department wouldn't help them. And you guys came to the rescue and got them out of Morocco and safely back home. That was an awesome review that they posted, actually. So there's also a nonstop from Washington, D.C., I think, isn't there?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just across the Atlantic. It's like a 7-hour flight. And I think people don't realize how close and yet how exotic and also how, relatively speaking, safe Morocco can be. And in fact, you guys are level 3. The CDC says you guys are, Morocco is actually safer than 80% of the world. So.
Yeah, as you said earlier, Wendy, it's a destination where a lot of things, especially now and into the summer months, you can do so much outdoors that just by default, that significantly decreases your exposure. And we're doing quite well in terms of vaccinations, and the overall caseload is quite manageable at the moment. So yeah, while it's foolish for any destination to claim that they're risk-free, I think as far as riskiness is concerned, Morocco is a safer destination than many out there in the world.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to be there in November, so. So thank you, Hisham, so much. Thank you for sharing that. So now let's turn to some of these questions that are coming in. I know there are a lot of questions, and let's answer as many as we can, as quickly as we can. We'll go through a lot. Brooke, have you had a chance to look at the questions coming in? Do you want to ask a few?
Sure. Meg, maybe we'll go back to you to start. Someone wants to know any suggestions for a nice beachy place to go from the West Coast with a nonstop flight?
Well, absolutely. There's always places to go. What about Puerto Vallarta? What about Huatulco? Are you okay with the Pacific side of Mexico? Hawaii, I'm seeing, well, I just booked Auberge on the Big Island, every 4th night free. So yes, there's places to go.
Excellent. Thanks, Meg. Billy, a listener has a question about your plans in Croatia. Are you doing a tour? Are you going on planning it on your own? Can you tell us about that?
I'm planning it with the help of Gwen and her colleague Ala, who's on the WOW list for Croatia, and I'm planning Greece with Mina. They're the ones who know what to do and how to get around the hassles. And if something happens, like with what Hisham has described with his travelers last fall, that's who I want on my side. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And Gwen, speaking of Croatia, someone asked, how is availability for testing for coming back to the US? How easy is it to get travelers?
Super easy. In most cases, the hotel will do it, and it's just something I naturally arrange as part of the itinerary. There are a couple destinations where it's easier in a clinic, and I just literally plan it on the last day of touring, so it doesn't like eat into anyone's time or become a hassle, and it's just taken care of, and that way they have it to go back, whether it's a requirement to transit. Although I saw a lot of our guests come to Croatia on Lufthansa and they just canceled their transit testing requirement, but to get back into the US, I think it's still there. That changes every day too, and we just handle it right before they depart.
Yeah, someone did have a question about getting the test to come back into the US. If you're vaccinated, that is still, as of today, still required that you get a test within the 3 days before you come back. That may change at some point, but but so you all know, even if you're vaccinated, you'll need to get tested in your destination. Mina, someone else asked about testing if a person travels from Georgia to Greece to Italy. Again, I think people are just kind of worried about the logistics. And what I'm hearing from all of you is that you can help with that. Is that true, Mina, for you?
That's true. We always have the most up-to-date information, and the information of today could be different next week. So as of today, I'm assuming we're talking about Georgia in the US and not Georgia, the country. If you are vaccinated, you don't require any testing. Currently, there is a testing requirement between Greece and Italy. I imagine that's going to change as soon as the EU opens up its complete borders. So we'll see how that goes. But as of today, there will be some testing required unless you are vaccinated.
Hisham, we're going to hold you to your last minute promise. Someone wants to know, is it too late to plan a last minute trip to Morocco from New York City departing in 2 weeks? Should they contact you?
It's absolutely not too late. Yes, they should contact us and we'll be happy to get something going. Yes, absolutely.
Great. Let's see. Someone asked about trips to Africa for safari. We don't have a trusted travel expert for Africa on the call, but I can tell you that I am in the process of planning a safari for July to Botswana and Zimbabwe. And in normal years, these are the kinds of places, small safari camps and lodges that book out months and months, if not years ahead of time. And I can tell you that you can still get availability. Although in one case, we got the last 2 seats on a flight within Africa between South Africa and Botswana. So you do want to make sure that those necessary logistics are taken care of before you book the rest of that trip.
And I think it's very interesting, Brooke, that you're flying into South Africa and sort of basing, and that's sort of your hub where you're going from is South Africa, which I think a lot of people, like the news a couple of months ago was that there was this terrible South Africa variant. People were avoiding that. But again, the situation changes all the time. And now it's actually incredible how well South Africa is doing. And it's now okay to do that, to fly in there.
And truly, it was our conversation with Dr. Timothy Trish during WOW Week a couple of weeks ago that made me feel really confident that I was comfortable going. I'm fully vaccinated, first of all, and we are flying into Johannesburg. We're not going to spend any more time than we need to, just because it's a city. I'm avoiding those more congested places when I'm at home and when I'm traveling. And then when we're out at camps and lodges, everything's open air. As Wendy said, I haven't been to Botswana, I have been to Zimbabwe, but I just know that on safari, you're outdoors all the time. Your meals are outside, the game drives are outside, you can do walking safaris, you might be on a river. So I feel really comfortable being able to take the precautions that I need.
And you're in your own tent, you're in your, like the lodge, at the camps and lodges, it's like you've got your own individual little bungalow or hut or tent or villa or whatever you want to call it. And there, Morocco is another place where I feel like that, there are a lot of resorts with their own individual little building that you're in.
Yeah. And when I was planning the trip, I was also thinking about waiting until the fall because my son is not yet vaccinated. He's 9, so he can't get vaccinated yet. And I would love to take him to Africa, but the travel companies in Africa are expecting there's going to be more and more travelers who are feeling comfortable to go. So there's more availability, from what I understand, for the summer months than if you wait a couple more months. If you're thinking, oh, I want to wait a little bit longer and see how things go, that you might not have the same number of options that you do with a last minute trip right now. Someone asked about insurance. Listeners going to Greece next month and wondering what trip and medevac insurance to get. She's always used MedJet in the past, but they do not offer any of the European countries for COVID-related evacuation yet. So that's right, MedJet, which takes you from a hospital in your destination to your hospital of choice back home. They can do that transfer for COVID positive patients in a number of places, and mostly near the US, the Caribbean, Mexico, within the US. They are not currently able to operate in Europe. They are working on that. So their website lists the destinations where they can do those COVID evacuations. There's another service called COVAC Global, which will do medevac evacuations back to the US. That is only for COVID positive situations. So if you have a heart attack when you're on safari and are hospitalized, they're not going to fly you home, whereas MedJet will if you're hospitalized, say in South Africa. This traveler also asked about travel insurance. So an evacuation program is one part of that. You also want travel insurance that will just get you from, your safari vehicle to the hospital in Johannesburg, say, and so that's another part that you want to make sure you have and pay medical bills that might come across. Billy, I think, has put some articles in the chat that talk about that, and we do have a panel discussion that we did with a bunch of travel insurance experts last week that you can listen to and read about on our site. Let's see, what other questions do we have?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, there's one on going to Albania from Croatia, and I'm so intrigued. Gwen, can you comment on that? What about going to Albania? I know a number of people doing that these days.
Yeah, Albania never closed, so they're still open. There is no testing requirement or anything like that. The easiest way to get to Albania, I mean, I haven't looked at flights from Zagreb, but you could fly into Tirana if you're flying from one of the European capitals. But if you're already in Croatia, the easiest way to get to Albania is to drive, and you do have to drive through Montenegro. So a lot of times we have people that are sort of country collectors. And so they do Croatia, stop in Montenegro, and then continue on to Albania, but it's completely possible. I probably wouldn't drive myself. Albanian roads are rustic, but it's entirely possible with a driver.
Thanks. There's also a question here about, I'm curious to know the answer to this. It's about Hawaii. Meg, what have you heard about the cost of rental cars in Hawaii? This person has heard that the cost is astronomical.
There's a big problem with rental cars in Hawaii. Luckily, I've been able to get rental cars for my clients. It's not easy. Stupidly, they sold all their inventory thinking that they wouldn't need it. And now everybody wants to rent a car and it's very difficult to get. Do not go to Hawaii without a reservation for a rental car. That's my advice. However, it does not need to be expensive. It does not need to be expensive. Let me know if I can help you.
Thanks, Meg. Let's see what else. Somebody is asking, is Capri safe now? And Billy, will you link in the chat to our Italy travel talk, because we discussed Capri in that talk. And actually, I think that like they've vaccinated almost everybody in Capri. Like that's one of the big tourism destinations of Italy, and one of the islands where they just said, okay, we want to make Capri as safe for visitors, and they vaccinated everybody there, I think. What other questions here? What happened to Darwin's Arch in the Galapagos? Allie, would you like to tell us?
Erosion. It's what built the arch and it's what killed the arch. It's basically just erosion, wind and just wind and the waves and all of that. So it's a shame something like that happened, but that's the nature of time and age and these beautiful, iconic, there are so many other places like the arch, Kicker Rock, for example, near San Cristobal. So don't be disappointed. It wasn't really on a lot of itineraries anyway. So not a lot of people saw it unless they were diving or whatever, but there are plenty of other places that are just as beautiful and like the rock.
Great. Good. Thank you, Allie. And here's one for Mina. What about going to Crete? How safe is that island?
Crete is really safe. And actually one of the trends that we saw last season, which is continuing this year, is kind of the go there and stay for a long period of time. We saw it in places like the Athenian Riviera and Crete because they do have bigger international airports. But Crete is working on vaccinating its local people as well as the tourism industry. And again, it's a part of the country where most things happen outside. So we don't have a lot of issues or concerns in terms of the personal safety as long as you're being vigilant and following those protocols.
Great, thank you. What other, let's see, we have a couple more minutes. Other questions. What are your thoughts about the UK? Will it open to fully vaccinated Americans? Well, we don't have a UK specialist here with us now, but Brooke, do you know the latest?
I don't know. I mean, it's there. I think the governments are in talks about it, but there has not been any solid news. You can go to the UK, but you need to quarantine when you get there.
Yeah, I have a feeling they will be. It's just a matter of when, but I think they will be opening to fully vaccinated Americans from everything I've read. It's just we don't know exactly when yet. And what are there any other questions? Oh, somebody's saying, Gwen, somebody is saying here, I thought you could take a ferry to Albania from Split.
Oh my gosh, that would be so far. So far. Because actually just a couple of weeks ago, I had a person staying in Hvar and they wanted to go straight from there to Montenegro, which is before Albania. And I was like, oh, how bad can it be? Let's charter a boat for them. No, it's hours and hours and actually still maritime border controls. And I that's nothing I would ever punish anyone with, honestly. It's just too far. And they're not comfortable. The ferries aren't luxurious. They're for like backpacker travelers.
Yeah, I once took the ferry from Split, Croatia, over to Bari in Italy, the overnight ferry. And it's like 1 star, maybe. It's backpacker level.
Yeah, I mean, I've had budget travelers
at night at all.
Yeah, I had budget travelers do some small ones, like there's Hvar to Dubrovnik in like 4 hours or, something like that. But to cross 2 borders and go all the way to Albania, no, I don't want to be responsible for that disappointment.
Yeah. Here's another one about Greece and then Italy. Travel from Athens to the island of Chios, Greece. Any requirements to then go to Italy?
At this point, yes, because the EU is not fully open. But once the EU does open, there should not be any additional requirements. But currently Greece is open fully, the EU is not. So you would require some kind of a testing and whatever Italy is requiring for their arrivals.
Mm-hmm. Great. There's a question here about Australia and New Zealand. Any expectation when they might open again? I think it's not till 2022, and I'm worried it may not even be first quarter 2022. Brooke, do you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're saying. A lot of the announcements are coming from the economic side of the government in Australia and New Zealand, and there are other actors who are pushing hard to change that. But Ashton, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, Australia just announced that they're definitely looking at mid-2022, and New Zealand has typically been following Australia's lead. So I think you're right, at least Q2 2022 at the least.
Okay. Thank you, Ashton. So one person, Gwen, one person is asking, what are your thoughts on going to Austria? We went on a Viking cruise in December 2018, loved Vienna. I mean, what is the latest on when Austria might open?
That's a very fortuitous question since I just spent 8 hours in talks with Austrians. Today is an Austrian summit. The news from the EU today was fantastic with, the possibility of vaccinated travelers being able to go. The Austrians, I think they told me today, are now at about 30% vaccinated, which is great. They were off to a very slow start. And everyone I talk to is very confident by September, but most even think something will open in August. We're taking a lot of requests for festive season, and I feel, completely fine about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they can work something out by, mid-August or so. Fingers crossed. I'll be on the first plane there.
That would be awesome. But do you think the music festival, the Salzburg Music Festival,
It's happening. That's
Really?
for sure happening. They were able to pull it off last year. They made the venues outdoor venues and did really big spacing on seats, and we're still able to do, I think it was approximately 50% of the performances last year, and it's still happening this year. So that is for sure going on.
Cool. Well, that's a reason to go in August.
Yes, yes.
Great. Okay, well, we've gone past the hour by 3 minutes, so I think we'd better wrap it up. We've gone through a lot of questions. There are still more, but of course, you all can always write to us. If you go to WendyPerrin.com and you click on Ask Wendy, you can send us your travel questions. And we so appreciate your spending time with us today. And we wish you, we're so glad that you're interested in traveling at the last minute, because we really do think it's a remarkable, almost once in a lifetime opportunity that is unfolding for summer and also fall of this year. And I know that all of you sort of intrepid, world travelers are exactly the type of people to take advantage of it. So thank you so much. And thank you so much to our WOW listers for joining us today and sharing all your wonderful insights and smart advice. And especially to those of you who have stayed up very late to be with us, Mina in Greece and Hisham in Morocco. Thank you so much. And thanks again for taking such great care of all of the travelers who are going to your countries and sending in awesome reviews of the experiences they've had with you. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody. Thank you.